Um, so I hope you managed to get to the new um, address. I'm going to give a few introductions about what our assessments are all about. Can you go mute, please? Just turn your sound off. Yeah, sorry, Brandon and I are sitting next to each other. Okay, so you need to turn your sound off, Brandon. Sorry. Okay, much better. Okay, so just a brief introduction to OpenED. OpenED, it was created to allow personalized learning tied to the Common Core. What it lets you do is choose resources based upon our largest catalog of Common Core and other standard aligned resources. It lets you um, and with our flipped classroom LMS, we give you assessment and quizzing tools that then suggest resources. We give you mastery charts that give you recommendations on resources. So the net effect is we're allowing you to teach, assess, and analyze with the largest K-12 resource catalog. So why did we create another assessment tool? There's certainly lots of assessment tools out there. The reason why is that we found that for teachers that wanted to do formative assessment, that is frequent quizzes, there really wasn't anything out there around the modern style of assessment questions, as exemplified by the Common Core, Smarter Balanced, and PARCC. We believe that formative assessments are critical for optimizing instruction and resource usage, so we built OpenED assessments. We believe it's the first free modern assessment tool and the only one that does resource-backed assessment. So what does resource-backed assessment mean? Well, it means that all items are associated with resources. OpenED's recommendations guide the resource attachment process for item writers and teachers. So, and then of course when the student takes the quiz or the formative assessment and they get a couple things wrong, OpenED will recommend to the student and to the teacher what resources they should use. We believe that this results in a new style of teaching that we refer to as formative flipped. Students take formative assessments, and then based on the items they miss, the students are suggested specific resources to address the gaps. And the result is true personalized learning for each student for the first time. So with that, I want to turn it over to Brandon to actually give a demo of OpenED's assessment and analytics tool here. So take it away, Brandon.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and just run you through how to create an assessment in OpenED, and then we'll also go ahead and just kind of do what we can from there and show how to create a course and that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do first here, share my screen with you all. All right. So when you're here on the main OpenED webpage, first you want to do, obviously you have to create an account. So you want to log in, you create an account, you can sign in using Facebook and stuff too, and then you want to first go to assessments here. There's another webinar if you're curious about how to use the tool in general on YouTube, also on the main OpenED page for support, but today is going to be focusing on the assessment tool. So what we want to do is create assessments. I'm going to be focusing on specifically building arithmetic sequences today, just for our sample assessment. When you select the grade level indicator here, it's actually kind of a nice time-saving feature because if I'm going to create a tool that's going to be used somewhere between 8th and 12th grade, which depending on when kids are taking algebra and whatnot, depends on when they'll need that. What it does is it automatically cuts down the amount of standards you need to wade through. So now when I click standards and I click Common Core Math, for example, and I'm going to go to functions here, and let's go ahead and just take standard FBF2 here. So notice how easy that was to find the standards, and even just that act alone I think is helpful a lot of times for students and teachers to see. On the mastery indicators, we have a mastery of 90% for this assessment, a near mastery of 70%, and that'll come into play later. So I'm going to create my assessment. Now, eventually, there'll be enough questions here on recommended questions. It'll show you questions already for that standard. But right now, let's go ahead and create one to get through that process. All of the questions in OpenED are designed to be smarter balanced and park type. So we're working on adding more types, but for right now, we have true, false, single selected response, multiple selected response, and also a free response for mathematics, which actually lets you put in a number and it'll grade it for you. So I'm actually going to be using that type of question today. And there's the question creator. So the question that I'm going to use today, just to show off the rich text capabilities of the question creator here, I'm going to create a table. And I'm going to go ahead and just make a simple sequence today. So I'll just say something like n over here and term. Okay, I'm trying to keep not get too mathy for our non-math people. Obviously, these same techniques can be applied when we're doing ELA and anything else. So I'll just show a couple terms in the sequence here. Then I'm going to say something like, what will fourth will the n equals 4. All right. So obviously there's only going to be one correct answer in this case, and I'm hoping you can all see that the term is going up by 4 every time. So for the n equals 4 term, it's going to be 21. However, if I did have a question that would have multiple answers, you can actually add different options here. So things like when you're doing a question involving x and y intercepts, and you want to make sure that students are putting it in the exact same, you want to make sure that they get credit for the intent of the answer. So you can have multiple questioning types here, multiple answer types. It's a great feature there for the free response. And then here's the key of OpenED, is that when a kid is taking this question, which we'll see in a second, and they get it wrong, they will then immediately see a resource that helps them. So in terms of formative assessment, typically it's always been, kids taking a question, even online, and sure, it's great that they know that they got it wrong or right away. But with OpenED, what the beauty is, because of the extensive, over 1 million video resource content library, immediately now a student is getting targeted help. So I click recommended resources. It automatically knows that I am looking for something with FBF2, and then it goes through and it even reads the question a little bit, seeing that I have the term sequences in there. So I'm going to go ahead and double check that I like this video. So this would be arithmetic sequences. So I'll preview the video. Notice that it did not have any adverse effect to my question creation. If I was going to be really using this question for sure, I would obviously go through and make sure that it fits exactly what I want to do. In this case, I'll go ahead and say, that looks good. I attach that to my question. You can obviously attach more than one resource to a question, depending on what you want to do. If you don't find it in recommended resources, which I'd say is fairly rare, you can actually go to find resources as well. And then you can actually search a little bit more freeform. It'll give you more resources perhaps, but the recommended resource is a really good engine tool. Also note that on the recommended tool you can search by video, by game, by exercise, and that kind of thing. So we go through, and before we send this question off, what I do want to do is make sure I rate it appropriately and also put a rationale. So if I'm looking at this, my rationale, again, if they get the question wrong, for right now, it would say something like, look at the difference between terms. Because this way, I don't want to give the kid the answer, but I also want them to kind of start to understand why they got it wrong. Difficulty, obviously low, medium, high. Depth of knowledge, which if you're not familiar with Webb's depth of knowledge, it's used extensively in the Common Core. Just saying that a level 1 is the easiest, and we want to move on. And more questions want to be 2, 3, and 4, obviously. So, and that's all I'm going to put. So just double checking things again. I selected my free response question. I narrowed down the grades in which it would be searched for. I definitely have my standard identified, and I've attached resources to the question when I get it wrong. So when I add my question, my assessment has been made. It's called Building Arithmetic Sequences. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the students would see. So I'm going to click Run. You'll notice that just like Smarter Balanced, the question is on the left and the answer box is on the right. So just because for purpose of the webinar, I'm going to go ahead and put the wrong answer. I look at this and I'm a real hardworking student, but I go ahead and I get it wrong. Actually, in fact, I get it way wrong. So I click next, answers if I want to, but I know I'm confident on this one. And I still need work. Now, you'll notice right away some recommended resources that I didn't even have to choose automatically are showing up on the right-hand side there. But here's the better part. When I click Review Answers, right away the resource that I, as a teacher, wanted for my students to see is right beneath it. So obviously this kind of gets extended out when we have resources that are more extensive, formative assessments. There's all kinds, and several times I'll usually put 2 or 3 assessments on there. So that's how we do formative assessments on here. And there's that. So
we want to show analytics, Brandon?
Yeah. So on analytics, that's when you've created a course, and there's also, like I said, a separate webinar for that. But we do have an analytics course that we've created, and you can go through and students can be added to the course. So this is an example course. The way that students get added is you simply have to give them the class code. And in this case, we've already done all this. So here's an example of analytics reports of this particular demonstration course. And so once the students have gone through and taken the formative assessment quizzes, you click Reports. You'll notice, this is one from we did earlier as well, you notice that my classes are already separated out by periods. So in a typical classroom, this would be period 1, period 2, etc. I have my students across the top. It's separated out by class average and also by assessment. So here's a fuller set of courses that you can see people have done. So it gives you a really firm breakdown of where students are at. Obviously, we believe that formative assessments typically are ungraded per se, but in this case, we need to know what they're getting right or wrong. I mean, that's definitely not what ungraded, that's not what it means, We need to know what they know. And so this definitely gives you a great breakdown. We can see that Leonardo da Pisa, also known as Fibonacci, he aced all of his assessments except for the writing one there. We can see that Brandon Dorman scored a 0% on the high school creating equations, and obviously the colors give a really good indicator of where people are at. So I would look at this, especially if it was on my tablet, on my app, I would know exactly where students were at. As soon as they finished taking it, not only would I know that they were consuming resources immediately that fit their particular interests and needs, I would know what they know. So the analytics tool is a great way to get your classes going, and also for you to know kind of your audience.
The other thing I'll mention is that we are going to be adding the ability to click on the specific cell, and we will show you the recommended resources to the teacher, just like we're showing to the students as well, and that will be online by next week.
And I'd like to take just a moment as well. On this courses, we'll go back here. Once you've created a new course, which you just click Create New Course in OpenED, as we're going through here, I'm going to go ahead and add that question that we just, or that assessment rather, that we just published there. So if I'm here in middle grades math, obviously in my course, it's a whole different webinar session, but just to make sure people understand this, if you have a resource that you really want to add, you can actually do that now straight from the My Resources tab. So if you've already got resources or whatnot that you want to add to your course, you would just hit Contribute Resources and you'd be able to do that. You can also add more. We can add resources from playlists. So there's a playlist feature that lets you tag appropriate content or assessments for your individual needs, and now you can go through and do that. So it's kind of spinning a little bit, but there we go. Oops. All right, I saw it pop up, so just give it a second, and then what we'll do is we'll add that to the course just so you can see what it looks like in the context of an entire course.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about assessment content that we have there. You'll notice there's 500 free items that are out there now. And so I'd encourage you to use those. Those are all free Common Core aligned items. We are adding that are released under Commons license, and we're going to be exposing a much larger set of pre-built items or questions from third-party providers over the next months or so, certainly before you start teaching. So with that, I think we'd like to open it up to the floor for questions or feedback from anybody, either about our assessment capability as it stands today, new things that we're adding, or what we're trying to do with analytics.
There should be a chat window on the top left side. You can click the group chat button in order to ask questions on here.
So I recognize some faces out there. I'm sure some of you have questions. Okay. Well, as some of you think about whether you have questions or not, okay, good. Let's see. How does the assessment and assisting the student work? So the idea is that you assign the assessment to the student. Based upon the things they get wrong, it recommends specific resources for the student to consume. Work within the course. So you can just put assessment items into the course, and as the student consumes the course, they can use the student app, and they will see resources. They can play those videos, play those games, and if they click on the assessment, they'll be prompted to take the assessment. And then as long as they're in your class, the results of that assessment will always show up in the analytics window. Or in that analytics mastery chart. So you can see it's out there today. It's pretty, so you build the assessment right in at the proper places. Yes, you would put the assessment wherever you want within the course. So you can have a few videos and games perhaps on a topic, and then have the assessment be after that, wherever you think it fits most naturally. Do you have curated questions, or is that something that's in the works? There's over 500, well, roughly 500 questions that are out there that we have sponsored creating that are all released under Creative Commons. You can use them as you see fit. In terms of curated questions, we believe they're all very high quality. The team that we have doing it are very experienced assessment item writers. All of them are aligned to the Common Core. All of them have been reviewed by a large set of professional assessment writers. So in some sense, that is, quote, curated. What we're adding in the future is item banks from several item providers, and that will be showing up over the next month. So it will be, instead of just 500, there'll be tens of thousands. But by the way, we're increasing the amount that we have on the site by several hundred a week in terms of the free Creative Commons licensed items. Does that answer your question, Swaroop? So if we add it, when you add a question, we do prompt you when you publish it that you must release it under Creative Commons. You do not have to release it under Creative Commons. You can keep your question private if you choose, but once you publish it, we're trying to encourage the creation of Creative Commons licensed content so that everybody can benefit. So we do, by default, publish it under Creative Commons license.
Yeah, I was just going to show sort of really quick on the main OpenED webpage when you go there. Well, for Anne, this is actually that course I just had made where I went ahead and within my topics, I can put assessments and I can put those where I want to. I can go through and I can rearrange where I want this different things. Okay. But also, what I was mentioning here on the main site, when you are searching for something, right here there's a drop down for resource type, and I think this is what you were talking about. I can click assessments, and now it's just going to be showing me all these different assessments.
Yeah, but also pick question.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of that's an easy way to look for different exercises and questions.
So pick. Can you pick question just to show that 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 option, Brandon? No, no, question from the drop-down menu.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So there's a full assessment, but then there's also individual questions. So you might write your own assessment, but then you can pick from the list of questions or items that are out there. And you can see there's 563 questions. The other thing that's sort of an advanced tip, but we've done one other webinar, so an advanced tip, if you decide that you like somebody's questions, in the filter resource by, you could type source. If you like Brandon's questions, you could type source :space Brandon. Why don't you try that, Brandon? No, in the, yeah, source : Brandon. And you can see Brandon has written quite a few questions, and he's written 112 questions. So this is a way that you can narrow it down to a particular source. I did get a question. They said, can OpenED assessments be embedded in an LMS like Blackboard, or do students have to sign into OpenED to access assessments? There's no sign-in required for any of our catalog usage. You can totally go in anonymously. The only thing you need to sign in to do is to create assessments or to create courses / lesson plans. We do have an LTI add-on that lets you go in and just do search from any LTI supporting LMS, which includes Blackboard and others. So you can find resources. I don't know that I've done much testing of that scenario though, where you get you can certainly find the assessment on OpenED, but in terms of running it um, from within Blackboard, and returning the results inside Blackboard, I'm not positive that we were returning that via LTI today, but that's a logical enhancement. Another question is, can I assign a set of assessment questions as homework easily? The way that would be done is through the course mechanism. You would add it to the course, but I think, so I'm going to answer Tim's question in two parts. The first question is homework easily. The way that an assessment is assigned today is by adding it to a course, which is easy enough, but it's maybe not as ad hoc as you would like it to be. We are making a significant change over the next month, where we are adding what we call a whiteboard that lets the teacher just drop assignments, homework, that kind of thing, and I think right to their students. So I think the whiteboard is going to be a great way for teachers to drop full assessments or questions on there. And then the second thing is, can homework results from students get written to PowerSchool automatically? We absolutely intend to do that. We intend to integrate with several SIS systems using Clever, and it's actually part of the pilots that we're conducting. We're actually in the Santa Cruz County Office of Education today, doing some pilot work, and that is in our plans to get there. I realistically, though, I want to say we will probably not get those until well into the fall, that integration with SIS. The other thing I want to mention, we haven't been bandying about formative assessments that much, but we do consider that these assessments, and really the whole system, is very oriented to formative assessments as opposed to, either medium or high stakes tests. There's a lot of things that would need to be done in any kind of stakes-oriented test, but certainly for, marking did you complete it or not, we will do that integration so that you can say, yes, you did that homework. Anne asks, are we able to integrate with Edmodo? I've talked directly with Edmodo about this. We support LTI, and we have tested it with Canvas and other LMSs. Edmodo keeps saying they're going to support LTI, but they haven't quite done it yet. We would like to support it. We may end up breaking down and supporting their own API, but our hope was that they would support LTI, which all the other LMSs do. can the analytics result be exported to a report format that can be printed, and will the report show questions missed by each student? So we're certainly going to add very shortly the drill down of when you click on the cell. That'll be coming online very soon. The results and then the recommendations. But the idea of exporting it to Excel is a good one, and we'll do that. This is the reason. Please come to these webinars. This is where we want to hear directly from you. So give the assessments. So with that, maybe a segue will say thanks for everybody's participation. Great questions. We will be doing subsequent Google Hangouts on air, especially around once we get this larger item bank and the new classroom whiteboard paradigm. Keep an eye on your email, and we hope to see you at those following sessions. Thanks, everybody.